So please keep that in mind. So I have prepared some I prepared some slides for you, which will give you some basic understanding of what is happening in the region. First of all, I would like to you understand what we are going to talk about. The region we are going to talk about. As you can see in the map, we are going to talk Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific is much bigger the concept than Asia-Pacific. It means that once a long time ago, we have Indo-Asia-Pacific conference here, but it was very narrow region. It was focusing only on a country in the Northeast Asia or Asia, Southeast Asia, up to India. But now this Indo-Pacific concept is much bigger than Asia-Pacific concept. This concept has been developed by USA, keeping China in mind. So this concept is China. You can say this concept is China focused. It extends up to Horn of Africa. It includes Pakistan, Iran, to some extent Saudi Arabia, even Horn of Africa, Australia. As you see, concept is much bigger. Region is much bigger than Asia Pacific. So now this is basically not economic concept. This is basically a strategic concept. This concept has been promoted and worked by USA, especially keeping China in mind. So it has basically had a very serious security overtones. So you should keep this in mind that the Indo-Pacific concept is a much bigger concept, but it's focused only on security interest. But it's also covers some economic area, but their real focus is security. So what is happening in the region? In this region, for a long time, USA was a lone player. USA has a limitless reach in the region, and there was no challenger. So for the last 30, 40, since the end of the Cold War, USA for the last, you can say 35 years, USA has unchallenged dominance in the region. So there was no country in the region which can challenge USA, both economically as well as security-wise. So USA was the sole master, and so USA was deciding about the rules of negotiation, rule of economic engagement, rule of security. Everything was coming through USA. But now recently, for the last 5 to 10 years, USA as a company. China is challenging USA almost everywhere, economically as well as security-wise, as well as diplomatically. So China has started challenging USA's dominance or USA's hegemony in the region. So that is creating new tension in the region. And post-security world order, which was set up by USA after the end of the Cold War, is now under serious stress. USA built a very serious security structure in the region. It has a lot of put in place, lot of alliances, lot of security alliances, economic alliances, and bilateral alliances to keep the region under its dominance and under order. That order, security order, was well functioning for the last 50, 60 years. It was fully oiled to serve the interest of USA and its ally. Not any longer. Now China is not allowing that system to work. So this system has come under serious stress from China. But USA is not giving in so easily. So USA has started pushing back China. So it has come out various strategies, various tools to push back China so that it can keep control of the region for a long time to come. But that kind of situation is not working now. Taking advantage of that power tussle between China and USA, small middle power like India and Korea are also becoming more and more active in the region. So they are trying to assert their authority, assert their interest in the region. So middle powers like Korea, India, Thailand are becoming more active, more and more assertive. So they don't want one security order to be replaced by other security order. So there is power tussle between USA, China, as well as middle powers like India, Korea, as a regional country in the Southeast Asia, Thailand. So these countries are not willing to accept to be replaced, USA hegemony to be replaced by China. So very serious power struggle is going on in the region, and it's going to have a very serious effect on our security as well as economic interest. So this chapter is going to discuss what India and Korea can do together. So I will take you through my presentations. So first, we are going to talk about what is happening in the region. So what is happening in the region. Some people, but it's not officially called yet, but some people call it a new Cold War. So we are going to say what was the old Cold War and what is the new Cold War. In the old Cold War, Soviet Union was the main player, but now Soviet Union is gone, and that code was based on competition as well as confrontation. There was a unity among USA allies how to deal with Soviet Union. So there was a unanimity of policy between USA and its allies how to deal with UNSC. So for 60, 70 years, USA was able to maintain a complete unity among its friends to fight against Soviet Union. And there was no ambiguity about the enemy, who is not. So battle lines was very, very clearly drawn. So there was, you can say, this is on the Soviet side, this is on the US side. And there was a non-element who was different. So every battle lines was very, very clear. Either you are with USA, either you are with the Soviet Union, either you are neutral. So there is no fourth party. All three parties was there. But now we have a very different kind of Cold War. Some people not want to call it Cold War because it involves both competition as well as cooperation. So this is a very strange situation. In Soviet Union, USA have very little cooperation, very little trade with the Soviet Union. But with China, USA and Sally have a huge economic business trade with China. So China is not as difficult country to deal with the Soviet Union. So billions of dollar trade, like for you, as you know, USA is the biggest trading partner with China. So is the European countries, so is Japan, so is Korea. And they're not only dealing with trade, but also many other corporations going on. Technology cooperation, diplomatic cooperation, students exchanges, a lot of things are happening. So this was not the case with the Soviet Union. So this is a very complex situation. And because of this, there's no consensus in the USA and the USA friends how to deal with China. So every country in Europe, in East Asia, and even in USA are having different policy opinions with that. This is how we should deal with China. So this kind of lack of consensus is a serious issue by China. US is not able to deal with China effectively. Other important point is lack of ideological overtones. Focus is on rising China as a threat, not communism as an ideology. In the Cold War, in the old Cold War, there was a clear confrontation between two contending ideologies, communism as well as liberal democracy. But not now. There's nothing like this. China as a communism is not a threat. China as a military power, economic power, is a threat. So rising China itself is a threat, not a Chinese ideology. So you have to understand these ideological overtones are very, very low now. They don't figure too much. USA not worry about USA is not worry about China style of communism. Chinese USA don't think China's communism is a threat. China as a country itself is a threat. China's economic power, China's military power is a threat. So that's why USA not able to mobilize its friends as he was used to do during the Cold War. So that is why situation is very complex and very, very. That is why many countries like India, Korea are not able to decide because they don't see communism threat coming from China. So it's very difficult to mobilize middle powers, even the US allies, against USA. That is why when China, USA organized a summit of democracy, not many people was convinced that is really needed or that it's a fight between democracy and communism. Not many people see it as that way. So it's a very complicated situation. So what will the over implication of this complex situation? The most complex situation is that tools used by USA in defeating communism are not working against China. So containment, military confrontation, sanctions are not working against China. Those tools, containment is not possible. Military threats are not possible. Economic sanction against China is not working. So all the tools which were used by USA to destroy dominance of communism have become useless, have become almost ineffective. So USA and USA friends have to find new tools, new mechanism through which they can stop China in the region. And because of this, there is serious disunity among US allies in the region. Japan don't agree with many of USA's policy approaches towards China. Like when Mr. Trump was trying to confront China, many European countries were very upset with Mr. Trump. So he was not able to get much support from European country. Even a country like Korea and Japan, which are strong allies of USA was not able to support Trump, what Trump was trying to do. So there's serious unity and serious lack of consensus have emerged among US allies. And because of these things, US is not able to stop Chinese expansion in the Indo-Pacific region because there's no consensus, there's no unity, there's no clear definition of threat, no clear definition of purpose. Nobody knows what is a purpose, what is the plan, what is the strategy. So even though people feel China's growing military power, China's growing assertiveness in the region, and everybody feels threat, but they don't know how to define it, how to see it, and how to bring all the country in the region under one flag. So it's a very complicated situation. So that's why bringing people country against China will be more difficult than it was the case for Soviet Union. That is why we have to do some more serious studies of the nature of the struggle which is happening in the region, so that we can mobilize pro-democracy forces together under one platform. So as I said, because of this, China is becoming more and more assertiveness. Power struggle in the region is becoming very intense. Both USA as well as China are trying to extend their influence in the region as much as possible they can. So silent struggle is going on between USA as well as China to extend their influence and keep their control over the region. USA wants to keep its dominance, so it has launched many new initiatives recently, like Quad, AUKUS, Free and Open Indo-Pacific, and many bilateral agreements. So this is a USA strategy to contain China. So USA is not openly saying that I want to contain China. So containment, the word containment has not been used. But even though everybody knows that all these Quad, AUKUS, and Free and Open Indo-Pacific are specially designed to stop China. China has a growing influence in the region. But for some reason, Americans are not able to use the word containment, use the word military threat, use the word threat to communism, threat to democracy. So these kind of things are very complicated. To counter USA, China also has launched many new initiatives. So one of them is Belt and Road Initiative. Second is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And third is China has launched many bilateral economic partnership in the region. So now almost in Southeast Asia, in Northeast Asia, China has a special trade agreements with almost every country in the region. So China's strategy is different from USA. So it's a military power versus economic power. So main focus of US strategy is to counter China militarily. US is strengthening its military alliances in the region. So it has a bring Quad, AUKUS, Free and Open Indo-Pacific. So all these three things are basically military alliances against China. But China has not initiated any new major military pact in the region. So China is not usually in the Cold War. If USA do something, Soviet Union would have immediately responded with the same kind of retaliation. But now China is very clever. Chinese strategy is very sophisticated. So they don't care what the USA is doing. Let the USA make Quad, let the USA make AUKUS. So they have their own strategy. So they don't let their strategy be influenced by US's action. So this is unique for the first time in human history. That two rivals are refusing to respond to each other's policy. China has refused to react to US's military moves in the region. China has not come out with a new strategy to counter Quad, AUKUS, and Free and Open Indo-Pacific. So China is behaving as if nothing is happening. They don't care less. So they have their own strategy. They are implementing their own strategy to throughout USA, to the region, their own way. So they are not reacting. So we can say in one way that China has refused to become the trap of US's strategy. So China has not proposed any military alliance with any regional country in the region. China has not come with any multilateral alliance in the region. So China is focusing on basically more and more economic cooperation. So now China is the biggest trading partner of most of the countries like Korea, Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, everybody. Almost every country in the region has China as its biggest partner. China is also the biggest investor. China is investing a lot in the region. And because of this reason, China is one of the biggest, not one of those, you can say, biggest aid giver in the region. So China has invested a lot of economic resources to win over the region. So for this region, that's why whole regional economy have integrated with China. So that is why China has, without firing a single bullet, almost whole region has integrated into China. So their railway is going up from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Laos. They are serious integration with Chinese economy. So now the region is more closely integrated than ever before. So USA, China don't need any military power, military alliances to keep the region close because it has a very serious economic web through which these countries have become very solely dependent on Chinese economy. So it's very difficult for this country to move away now. As such, US is not able to do much to stop China expansion in the region, as USA has very limited economic resources in the region. So Chinese know very well that USA cannot do much to counter China's strategy for economic integration into the region. So that is why Chinese strategy is not working. USA has no tool to stop China taking over the entire region without firing a single bullet. So Chinese economic strategy is working, and USA has limited tools because China is not trying to force its political ideology at this stage. China is not forcing Korea, Japan. China is not interfering into the political affairs of the country. So that is why US's political tools are not working. So China has just kept the whole strategy purely economical, purely business. So that is why USA cannot use its political tools to stop China. As a result, because three things are happening. Number one, China is refusing to counter USA's military strategy. China is refusing to enter into limited affairs, into political affairs of the country. Third, China is focusing only on economic resources because this USA is being pushed back into the Pacific Ocean regions. So almost whole region from Korea, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, whole region has integrated into the Chinese economies. So it's very difficult now for USA to have a say in the region. So as the days progress, so this economic integration of the region under the Chinese leadership will continue, and it will become almost impossible for any economy, Korean economy, Japanese economy, or Thailand economy to survive without Chinese support. So we are heading into for the first time in human history, whole region will be integrated economically. Without calling it as a one economic area like Europe, whole region will become one Europe, like European style integration. But here, difference will be China will be the epicenter of whole integration process. So that is why for something unprecedented is happening as we speak in the region, and that will have a very serious consequences for India. And we will see what we can do in the next slides. So because of this, economic integration under the Chinese leadership, now there are very tough choices for regional countries. What they can do? Due to power struggle, regional countries are being forced to make tough choices. Both USA and China pushing hard to win over them. So small countries like Korea, Thailand, China, USA are pushing them to come to their side. But these countries are small. They cannot survive without USA. They cannot survive without China. So they are in a very difficult situation. They don't know what to do. So they have very tough choices to make. So post-Cold War, simplicity is gone. But simplicity USA was the dominant player. China was major economic player. So everybody knew what to do, to whom to say yes, sir. Now they don't know to whom to say yes, sir. So yes, sir policy of a regional country cannot be implemented now. So you cannot say, okay, sir, let's do that way. No, because there are a lot of complicated things that are going. Country like Korea and Japan was following the policy, yes, sir. Yes, sir policy is not working anymore. So they cannot say yes, sir to US anymore because China is there to challenge their yes, sir policy. So it's becoming very, very complicated. So regional countries are having a very complicated relationship with China. So the real country like Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, they hate Chinese military expansion. They don't like China because China is asking for more and more in Southeast Asia and South China Sea. Chinese are claiming more and more territory. So, but Chinese people don't like it because it poses a serious threat to their military sovereignty, regional sovereignty. So they hate growing Chinese military expansion in the region. So that is why they like USA. But on the other side, they love China's economic engagement. China is ending poverty like never before. China is building bridges. China is building roads. China is building railways. China is building almost unprecedented. China is bringing unprecedented economic development and growth in the region. If you come to the region, you will see the whole region is growing like never before. poverty for the first time, maybe in human history, economic poverty will be completely wiped out because of China's involvement in the region. Massive growth is happening in the South Asian country, in Korea, Japan, everywhere. And a lot of so it's not easy to say hate China because China is bringing a lot of economic resources in the country. So as a result of this complex situation, because of China, there's policy chaos in Asia and North Asia. So policy chaos is a serious problem now. They don't know. They don't know what kind of policies they can follow. So policy chaos in Asian region is the biggest problem the regional countries are facing. So in this situation, when everybody is facing a crisis, so same is with India. Same is with India. Same is Korea and India are facing the same choices. Like other regional countries, both India and Korea are also facing tough policy choices as they move forward. They are facing. They don't know whether to go with China or they go with the USA. So they have basically they have two options: whether to join one of the two camps, or they have their own way. They go their own way, like China is doing. So, but like US, India is doing. So, autonomy in the foreign policy seems to be the preferred choice of both countries. So, India has decided not to go fully along with the USA, but also not go fully along with China. Same is that with Korea. So they are trying to keep a kind of they are not calling it a non-alignment. No, they call it autonomy in foreign policy. Autonomy in foreign policy. Sometimes they can support USA, sometimes they can support China, sometimes they can keep neutral. So non-autonomy in foreign policy different from non-alignment. You have to understand the clear difference between two policies. Earlier, India was following non-alignment, but this time we call it our policy autonomy. So this is multi-alignment, not non-alignment. So in multi-alignment, it's more complicated. Here you need more sources, more specification, expertise to decide. Because each and every policy has to be debated, has to be seriously discussed by among experts before making it into official policy. So that is why it's more complicated and more difficult policy to follow. But so far, India and Korea have chosen not to align with any country and keep the independence of their foreign policy as their preferred policy choice. So what is happening now in Korea's foreign policy? So, as you know, from birth, South Korea became a strong ally of USA. So when South Korea was founded, USA was there. USA Army was there. So from the beginning, from the 1945, South Korea has remained ally with the USA. So both participated in the war against expansion of communism in the Korean Peninsula. So both of them fought the Korea War together. And Korea supported USA military objective in the region. Like Korea sent military forces in the Vietnam War, Iraq War, even Afghanistan War. So Korea was supporting a USA military objective in total. So there was no difference between USA and South Korea in the beginning. So the total, whenever USA fought some war, South Korea will automatically get involved in it. No discussion. So that kind of partnership was there. That kind of alliance was there. Total, but there was no scope of any difference at all. So Korea and USA had a complete alignment of foreign policy. Korea has aligned its foreign and defense policy with USA. Low-level ties with China. So as late as 1990, South Korea has no ties with China. It was complete breakup. Not even very low. Trade was very, very low, almost non-existence. And coordination with USA was complete, total. So you can say in one way, USA and Korea was acting as one country, one policy, one choices. So it was total coordination. And Korea started having relationship with China only after 1990, when Cold War ended. Then Korea started having kind of a relationship with China. Now, in the recent time, due to increasing power struggle with China, Korea started moving away from USA. So now, after 20 years engagement with China, 30 years engagement with China, or 40 years engagement with China, we have seen that for the first time, a gap is emerging between South Korea and USA. So now, USA is not say yes to everything. Just our policy of USA has gone. Now, USA, China, South Korea has started following its own policy. So, because of this new policy and new assertiveness by South Korea, South Korea has refused to support Quad and refused to support AUKUS and refused to support Indo-Pacific. And And this because of this, there's some gap, there's some difference between USA. USA was expecting, as before, USA, South Korea will help us and join our security initiative in the region, but not anymore. So there's serious uneasiness among USA policymakers, strategic thinkers about South Korea's recent policy choices. And you will be surprised to know that recently China, South Korea joined China-led RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This economic agreement and in the region which led by China and South Korea, despite the USA's pressure, South Korea refused to listen to USA and join the comprehensive economic partnership, and which is strengthening China's economy much more than before. And it also adopted three no policy to make China happy. But the three China policy, three no policy, it said it will not let USA third development. It means all the missiles that China has, South Korea has, USA has deployed in South Korea. That is it. It will not let any new missiles come to Korea which are targeted against China. So whatever is done. No, not anymore. Third is a kind of missile program, missiles which are specially designed to confront, because it's a long-range missile, so it has nothing to do with North Korea. It's specially designed to counter China. So, but USA, under pressure from China, USA, South Korea said, no, we will not let you deploy any more missile in Korea. So now China has said no participation in the USA missile defense network. So China is developing a missile defense program in the region, but USA was expecting that South Korea will join us. But South Korea has said, no, we will not help you to develop anti-China advanced missile program in the region. And this is also very hurting between the two alliances. And third is that no establishment of any trilateral military alliance between USA and Japan. Earlier China, when USA was dominant player in the region, USA, Korea, Japan was working as one team. But now, not anymore. Now, relationship between South Korea and Japan are almost on the verge of collapse. So because of this, American dreams to build a trilateral alliance, military alliance between USA, Japan, and Korea has collapsed. It means there's serious difference between Japan, Korea, and USA. So this works for China very well. China was fearing that if there's a military alliance between three countries, it can hurt our economic interest in the region. It will become very difficult for China to expand into the region if these three countries have a military alliance. But USA, South Korea has refused to support any military alliance with the USA and Japan. So this works for USA very well. And this have a serious implication for USA strategy in the region. So it has created a serious problem for USA. Earlier, as I told you, USA, South Korea was a completely gesture country. But now USA has started, South Korea has started its own new Southern policy to build stronger ties with ASEAN and India. Now, South Korea is for the first time, South Korea is following its own independent foreign policy. So it is developing closer ties with ASEAN as well as India. So under this new Southern policy, South Korea has taken many new measures through which it has strengthened its cooperation with the regional countries. And its policy is much different from USA. So if you study clearly, USA is no more, South Korea is no more aligned with the even though it's still a partner, still the USA forces are still in Korea. It's no more as stronger relationship as it used to be. And this also works for China very well, because China can seriously exploit the growing differences between two countries. It can work for China very well, because any alliance between these three countries can hurt China very seriously. And as you can say, for the first time, South Korea has become very active in world affairs and dual diplomacy. As you know, we have a US GNO Secretary General was Korea. For the first time, Korea sent a Secretary General to GNO. It shows Korea's desire to play more active role. Korea is a small country, but it has an ambition. It has an ambition and mind to play a world-level role. So you can see the extent of self-confidence in a country like Korea. How big their dreams are. Their dreams are that even though they are a small country, they must be known all over the world. So they are becoming more and more confident. So they organize like the Seoul Summit, G20 Summit. So international events, they keep organizing all the time. If you come to Seoul, USA is South Korea becoming organizing more and more high-profile military, diplomatic summits in Korea, summit in Seoul. So it shows that South Korean ambition, South Korean self-confidence is growing, and South Korea has big dreams. So it means it looks good, but on the one hand, one say it is a matter of serious concern. But it shows that South Korea is no more listening to USA. South Korea wants its own role. So it means the alliance is collapsing. Once the alliance collapses, everything collapses. So we have to worry. We have to worry about what is happening in South Korea. Now, let's have a small review of what is happening in India's foreign policy. As you know, from birth, when we started, we do not become any part of any power bloc. Nehruji started our own non-alignment. It was an equal distance from two blocs. So we have no preference for anyone. But during the Cold War, when China started supporting Pakistan, our country have a little tilt towards Soviet Union, and we have a kind of a friendship agreement in 1971 with with Russia. So we have a undeclared partnership with Soviet Union. No, that partnership was specially designed to keep USA and China in place. So it was a multi-purpose alliance, not just against USA. It was supposed to keep a balance of power. It was not influenced by ideology. It was fully influenced by survival, national interest. So we became partner with Soviet Union, and Soviet Union also never tried to impose their economist ideology on us. So we was able to keep our, even though we were aligned with the Soviet Union, but Soviet Union allowed us to function as a democracy. So we do not have to go through that pain which many communist countries have to go because of partnership with the Soviet Union. But we was lucky. Soviet Union never forced their political ideology on us. So even though we were being protected by Soviet Union, but we was able to keep our political system and constitutional system under Soviet Union partnership. But now, and during the Korean War, India played a very neutral and important role to keep to play a role of a peace broker. During the Cold War, we played a very active role to bring the Korean War to early end. Even till now, many Koreans remember the kind of role India played to bring the Korean War to end. That's why Korea has a special place in Korea. That's why this Korea has a special place in Korean mind, that India, the kind of role India played to bring the war to closure. India was a very honest, very few countries were honest. Very few countries was playing a real peacemaker role. India was one of them. Nehruji very honestly, very truthfully made sure that war comes to an end as soon as possible. So now, in the beginning, South Korean people do not realize. South Korea thought we are a partner of, we are allied with North Korea. They thought we are a kind of socialist country. So that time, for some time, there was bad feeling among South Korea about India that we are. But now they realize that India was a completely neutral country. So that is why this is one of the basis of partnership between us. They fully understand the kind of role India played to bring the war to an end and save so many Korean lives. After the end of the Cold War and USA and Soviet Union, India started tilting towards USA. After the war, there was very difficult choices. There were difficult choices, but where India can go now? So naturally, with Soviet Union gone, Russia is not in a position to play any important role. So USA was the only player in the region. So we also, our policymaker also, to some extent, tilted towards USA. So for the last 20, 30 years, we are having a very good military ties with, economic ties with the USA. So our relationship grew very good. We have a many strategic partnership, economic partnership with USA. And that thing, but it has consequences. That consequences created a confusion in the USA mind. They thought now China, USA is part with us. So they started developing their big plans that they can use India against China. But that was not the case. So now that's why for the timing when the Cold War between China and US is heating up, so we are not coming to the exploitation of USA. That is why a new tension is emerging between USA and India. Despite everything, we are refusing to be to be used as a war fodder for USA. We don't want to be used as to serve any country interest. So we are following a new multi-alignment policy, or we can call it autonomy in foreign policy. So this autonomy foreign policy is forcing us to keep good relationship with China and Russia. So that is why when Russian president came to Korea, came to India recently, China Americans was not happy with us. They were saying, "Oh, why we are buying weapons from Russia? Why we are having good ties with Russia?" So, but we know that we cannot allow American get too close to us and develop too much ambitions from our strength in the region. So we have to keep USA a little bit away from us. So this arm in foreign policy is a common factor which India and Korea are following today. So focus on developing good ties, Asia Pacific, following ACT Act East policy. So this, so India is now trying to develop better relationship with the East Asian countries. So we, as you know, we are following a Act East policy. This Act East policy is a much broader concept than Look East policy. Look East was just simple bilateral cooperation or regional cooperation. But now, because of Act East policy, we have dig deep into the region. You know, our ties are much deeper than it used to be. So under the leadership of Modi ji, we have come a long way in developing good ties with the region. So to some extent, Modi ji policy on in the East Asia is working. So we are seeing some good results, and we are much better than before. Because Look-East policy was just a name only. But now, because of this new initiative taken by the new Indian foreign policy establishment, so we have been able to look at the region from very different perspective. Earlier, we just looking at the economic cooperation, some benefit, some trade. We were looking only at trade figures, not anymore. Now we don't look at trade figures only. We don't look at the investment policy only. We see and understand the bigger picture. How China is operating, how economic agreement is going on, how the infrastructure development is reaching. So what is happening in South China Sea? Our approach, our engagement in the region is much deeper than ever before. So something like this has never happened in India. So what is happening? Indian engagement in the East policy is unprecedented. Never before in India something like this has happened. So we are now deeply involved in the region, and our policy is showing some good results. So under this East policy, we are trying to develop good relationship with Korea. So what are the basis of this alliance formation between India and Korea? So I'm going to ask this one very important question, which is basis of alliance formation between India and Korea. What causes two countries placed into two entirely different geopolitical regions to seek a strategic alignment and alliance with each other? Now, Korea and India are very far away from each other. Why? How? The two countries are placed in different geopolitical regions. Why they will come close to each other? So from theoretical perspective, Stephen Wall, he's a professor at Harvard, he has written a very good article. His alliance is alliance formation and the balance of power, balance of world power. In that article, he has argued that two powers completely aloof from each other can be pushed to each other by the force of circumstances. So it means some situation can force two countries who are entirely different from each other, very far away from each other, to become friends with each other. So here identified two reasons which brings two countries together. One is that sometimes like Korea, preservation of unique cultural identity. Korea has very unique cultural identity. Korea has a civilization, even though it's a small country, but it has civilization. It has strong cultural identity. So Koreans are very nationalistic people. So no matter what, they want to preserve their separate civilizational identity, cultural identity. As you know, but USA is withdrawing. USA will be pushed alone. They cannot face China. China is too rich now. China is one of the best relations in the world. So South Korea has reserved that their cultural identity, their civilization is in danger. They fear that they can be swallowed up by China. So the whole country can be swallowed by China. So South Korea are fearing, but they should do. So they want to save their identity. They want to save their separate civilization, separate way of life. And second point is second Korean, because Korea is a very big economy, but so they some of the Korean companies are bird level companies. But if they come under Chinese pressure, they will not be able to protect their protect their products. Samsung, Hyundai will collapse if they come under Chinese control. So without big companies, China, USA, South Korea is nothing. So their Korean trust are under grave danger. The security interest under grave danger. So but they know they cannot protect themselves. And USA is going. There's no with Japan, they don't have good relationship because of historical reasons. So they have no country in the region which can help them to protect their economic and security co-national interests. So that's why India is the natural choice. India is the logical choice for South Korea. So that is why, even though India is very far away, they are reaching out to India. That help us. We are in difficult situation. So this protection of core national interest and protecting their unique cultural identity are two core reasons which is forcing Korea to come close to India. And same thing is with us. Same thing is with us. And our country cannot keep the balance of power in the region if Americans are pushed out of the region. So we also feel that if the balance of power, if the security structure led by US collapse, China will become most powerful country in the region. But we don't want that to happen. So we are also trying to have a bilateral ties with the region. So that is why we have very good relationship with Japan. Now we are trying to good relationship with Korea. So the idea is that if we have a good relationship with real countries like Japan, Korea, Thailand, other countries, we may able to form some kind of group. Not a military group, but kind of an economic group or some kind of a democracy group, something like through which we can force China to follow some rule of law or some order, so that their identity, their interests are not jeopardized, and they can protect their core fundamental values. So these two things are. These two conditions are currently applicable to India-Korea strategic partnership. Because of these two reasons, both countries are able to come closer to each other. Both wants to protect their unique cultural identity and core national interest and economic interest from rising China. So apart from this core interest, this is one of my interview in the recent newspapers. Korean newspaper published a lot of interviews, and this is one of the Korean interview in which I was interviewed, and we discussed in detail what India can do to strengthen the cooperation with Korea. So apart from this basic Korean trust between two countries, we also share some many other interests between Korea and India. So apart from two main bases of alliance formation, India and Korea also share convergence of core political and economic interests. One, convergence of common political values. Both are democracy. We want to preserve our democracy. Convergence of economic interests. Both of them are market economies. Third, convergence of common interest in rule of law in global governance. We want a rule of law and law governed Indo-Pacific. So we want, when the USA is forced to leave the region, we want a region new order to emerge. That order should be based on a equality of rule of law, of some rules. It's not like China will force its rules, it's built on China. No, we are trying to create a new order, law-based order in the region. And this whole global governance should be governed by some basic fundamental rules which respect almost every country in the world. So we have common interest with Korea on this law-governed Indo-Pacific region. And third, we have a fourth number, convergence of common interest in peace building and nuclear non-proliferation. Now, as you know, in Korea, nuclear threat from North Korea is a serious threat. And we support South Korea's foreign policy on peace building and nuclear non-proliferation. As you know, North Korea is deeply involved with Pakistan. Pakistan was deeply involved in developing North Korea's nuclear program. So we are helping South Korea to face the situation because we have a lot of experience how to handle Pakistan. So we are trying to, South Koreans are trying to learn from us. How they can deal with democracy, how they can military dictatorship and how they authoritarianism, So South Korea has a deeper interest working with us to stop nuclear proliferation in the region. So now South Korea, because the balance of power is shifting now, so USA dominance is being challenged, and balance power which was set up by USA dominance is shifting. So uh, the new equilibrium is not emerging. So, but South Korea and India have decided to maintain a new equilibrium. Both India and Korea have chosen economy and foreign policy over joining any power bloc in the region. Both using the economic and military weight are trying to keep balance of power in the region. Both are emerging as new balancer in the region. Any shift in their foreign policy can play to the balance of power in the region with unintended consequences for the entire region. So both understand if there's any power shift in the region, it may become difficult to bring order in the region or bring a new equilibrium. So they both of us are trying their best that balance is maintained and order is maintained. Once the order is destroyed, it will take years or so, even decades to set up a new balance of power in the region. So both USA and both South Korea and India are trying to use their economic as well as military power so that this order in the region is maintained, so that peace is sustained as long as possible. They know that if South Korea joined China, or if South Korea openly started supporting USA in foreign policy, balance of power will tilt towards one party, and that balance of power can create a lot of chaos in the region. So both understand the complexity of the region. Situation is very complex, and both understand their region because both of them are very big economic powers. And USA is also military power. India is also military power. If India openly declare China, USA as their partner, or they join the USA bloc, whole military power balance will collapse. So that will disrupt peace in the region. If South Korea openly declare that they are going to USA or they are going to China, military balance of power will collapse. So we have to. Both countries are acting very, very responsible, very, very nicely. So this new equilibrium in which both countries are acting very, very responsible and very, very carefully, keeping peace in the region. Keeping peace in the region. Peace in the region is maintained by a comprehensive security structure in the region. And that comprehensive structure is led by USA now. But that region is under serious stress. South Korea and India are playing very responsible role, very thoughtful role, so that this security structure is not disturbed as long as possible. But they know that things are moving very fast. They may not be able to help much, but they are doing their best as long as possible. So what they are doing to maintain that nuclear. So both of them, step number one is that both of them are expanding their fighting capability of their armed forces of Korea. So they know that just as China has launched a massive military modernization program of their armed forces. China is building one of the most powerful navy in the world. They know that USA alone may not be able to stop Chinese forces in the coming years. So both South Korea and India have launched a massive modernization program of their armed forces, so that they can keep military balance. Because USA alone itself may not be able to keep China in check. So both South Korea as well as India are following massive modernization program. Here I have given some example what both countries are doing. Korea is following a modernization of its armor in full swing. So South Korea are developing this aircraft carrier. Even though South Korea is a very small country and South Korea is a very small economy, but still they are going to have this aircraft carrier. Aircraft carrier, they say, will have a F-35B airstrike fighter, strike fighter weapons, airplanes. And you can see that Korea has planned to develop this massive destroyers in the region for its navy. Then these are steps. You can see that a massive modernization program is going on in Korean Navy. These are steps. This example, the list is very, very long. If I prepare all the list, you will be surprised that I can end up filling more than 20 slides only on South Korea's military modernization program. Even if you don't cover South Korea's Air Force and Navy, Army, but because we are India, we are more worried about South Korea Navy, naval cooperation than other wings. So that is why I focus on Navy. Massive naval modernization program is going on, and that will help us maintain peace in the region, especially in the Indian Ocean. Same thing is with India. As you can see, I have India is following a massive modern upgrade program of the Navy capabilities. If you see, I have given three examples what India is doing to strengthen its navy to maintain peace in the Indian Ocean. So, so that new capability will help us to some extent to maintain balance of forces. I'm not talking about balance power. I'm talking about balance forces. So this modernization program in South Korea, modernization program in India will help us to maintain a kind of a balance of forces in the Indian Ocean. So both of us can work together to to keep China in check to some extent. Now, other step they are taking is both countries are taking various bilateral steps to strengthen the alliance. Apart from developing the militaries, there are many other steps they are taking. Some examples are here. They are conducting joint naval exercises, flag showing visit to ports, plan to build joint maritime central India choke points. So these are steps which they are trying to take with each other to strengthen their military cooperation between each other. Earlier, they were trying to develop their own capability. This is a bilateral cooperation between two countries. So you can see, once again, the list is very, very long. And they're preparing. This is he's the president of Korea Defense University. Korea Defense University is a key institution in Korea, which is leading the effort to build a powerful military alliance with India. If you come to Korea now or today, at any point of time, there's at least 2-3 colonel or high-level officers studying in this university. This university is the key figure. Anybody who want to have a good cooperation with, want to study this military cooperation with India, this is a man. You need to develop friendship with this man. He's the president of the Korea National Defense University, and they're helping Indian officers to train, to understand them what is happening in the region. So at any point of time, at least 2-3 colonel level officers or senior general level officers studying in this university. So earlier there was used to be no exchange of ideas, but now there is constant exchange of ideas is happening in the region. So when I came to Korea, I didn't even know this university. So we have done a lot of good work. My articles, my conferences, my seminars are having some impact in India. Now we have a constant dialogue, my articles keep appearing in Indian newspapers. My interviews keep publishing in the region. So they know me. Everybody in Korea who are focusing on defense cooperation know me. Know my name. Know my work. They know even everything because I'm living in Korea for 25 years. So this is called a family relationship. Whenever they organize any conference, any seminar, they are in touch. We are like a family. Our cooperation has reached. At a family level, limitless cooperation. No formality anymore. We are becoming as a family. So this level of cooperation is encouraging us to develop more and more good ties with Korea, because at the institutional level and at the policy level, there's a lot of encouragement, lot of excitement that. India and Korea can come together. But everything is not so good. I will discuss with you when we go to the intelligence part that something needs to be more to be done. But things are moving in a good direction as a whole. This is a Prime Minister of Korea. I used to work with him, when he was in power. So we had a good cooperation with him. He also one of the greatest supporter of India-Korea green policy cooperation. He's an expert on environment. He has a green fund. So he wants to have a stronger cooperation on environment, on green policy. So because of the efforts, its policy, it's quite possible that very soon we will have a quite joint policy on environment, on green policy, what we call green. So I used to work with him very closely. I published his 1 or 2 very good interview into my magazine. When I was running a magazine, he was my great supporter. So he's kind of one of the most source of strength for me in Korea. Now I will tell you what are the basic importance for India and Korea for each other. To work an alliance has to be mutually beneficial and needed for long-term reason. Is the India-Korea alliance is mutually beneficial and needed for long-term reason? My answer is yes, it is. Alliance is mutually beneficial and needed for long term. So this is a core answer. I have answered very clearly. alliance is mutually beneficial and it is long term. It's not needed for some small term, some limited purpose. It's long term reason. So I have identified some reason here. Now, Korea, why Korea is important for India? One, Korea is a epicenter of technical innovation. India needs those tech. If you Google, if you go to the most innovative country in the world, you say Korea. Something limitless innovations are happening in Korea. The most innovative Korean people are most innovative people, most technical minded people in there. So those technology, those innovations are can play very important role in building new India. If we really want to build in India, there's no country like Korea. No country like Korea. No country like Korea. There's no country in the world which can help us grow faster and stronger than Korea. So, Korean technology can change the face of India. And Korean technology not come with a lot of sanctions, lot of conditions like USA. When Americans or Europeans share the technology with us, they put a lot of conditions. But here in Korea, technology comes with a very less conditions, very less restrictions. So Korea is a country which we need to develop our economy, our military, and our technological base. Number two, as I told you, in the region in Northeast Asia, USA-Korea alliance is the balance of holder. If Korea dump USA, whole thing will collapse. Whole thing collapse. Whole thing collapse. So we have to support South Korea so that USA-Korea alliance is stronger, it remain intact. But these days, as I told you recently in the previous environment, gap is increasing between South Korea and USA. But that can have a weakened alliance. If that alliance is a weakened, South Korea USA alliance can break. So that is why we have to strengthen USA South Korea so that USA South Korea alliance is maintained and that South Korea remains key player in the region. So South Korea is a very important player to maintain balance, regional balance of power in the region. Third is that, as you know, North Korea has nuclear bomb. South Korea is trying to denuclearize North Korea, but so far the strategy is not working. So far South Korea is focused only on USA, China, Russia, or six-party countries. But so far this is not working. But possibility of nuclear war is increasing. If there is nuclear war in the region, it will hurt not only India but the whole entire region. That is why, but as a country of peace, we have to make sure that South Korea is not pushed to a corner where Bahrain is the only option. So we need South Korea. We have to engage ourselves in South Korea. That possibility of nuclear war is avoided. So that is why South Korea is a very important country for us. So that nuclear peace is maintained in the region. As I told you, South Korea is the biggest country in the link. USA alliance with Korea is still strong, but USA alliance with Korea is getting bigger and bigger. And it means if the USA let us go to structure in collapse, it will collapse because of the South Korea. But if that alliance is collapsed, it will have a limitless consequences for the whole region. So we have to make sure that South Korea remains stronger partner for USA, so that the US is not left alone, and alliance collapse. As you know, South Korea is a small country, is almost a very big economic power. And bilateral trade with Korea can have a influence on our economy. So USA, South Korea is also an economic player in the region. Very important source of investment, source of economic goods. So because of that reason, we simply cannot ignore South Korea because of this reason we are trying to develop our economic cooperation with South Korea as much as possible. Another reason which we need is that South Korea has as I told you, is a stronger navy. South Korea is putting a lot of investment in developing its navy. So that navy, along with the Japanese navy, can play a very important role in helping us in keeping balance of power in Indian Ocean and keeping China in check. These two countries, if they join with India, they first can maintain peace in Indian Ocean without USA. Even if USA is pushed back, still we have hope. If Japan, USA, Korea, three navies are joined hands, we still have resources. We still have a know-how to maintain a peace. So three countries are. So if USA is very unstable. We don't know what can happen to US. Which of US like Trump? Suddenly they can take a decision. Okay, we are living in Indo-Pacific. We are going. So what happened? So we have to prepare even though it's a hypothetical situation, we have to prepare a situation where USA is no more active in the region, what we will do then? Then we have to develop a partnership with South Korea, Japan, and Thailand. That is why, so we should not forget South Korea's role in the Indian Ocean, in the post-American era. Because USA's engagement in the region is not as assured as it used to be during the Cold War. Now, a lot of things are happening. South Korean, American economy is very weak. American politics is very flexible and very, very unstable. So in the future, anything can happen. Any Democratic leader or a Republican leader can decide that we don't want to stay engaged in the region anymore. So we have to prepare post-USA Indo-Pacific. And post-Indo-Pacific, Korea and Japan will be our top key players. That is why we should keep South Korea on our side. South Korea's strategic importance is very critical for us. Now, having highlighted the importance of South Korea, now what are the difficulties? What are the challenges we are facing? Challenges facing is number one challenging, which is the most important challenge is that power is shifting very fast. Now China is extending into the region very, very fast. China's military growth, China's economic growth is very fast. So balance of power is changing very fast. But South Korea's economy is not growing that fast. South Korea's military is not growing that fast. So South Korea is coming under constant pressure, more and more pressure from China. So given that pressure from China, South Korea may not be able to keep its independent foreign policy. So South Korea may be forced in coming 5 years, 10 years, may be forced to become aligned with China. Not willingly, but unwillingly, China may be forced to. So that is very serious for us. So now we have a chance. Now we should develop the relationship. But after 10 years, that window will be completely closed. South Korea will be completely aligned with China. Now South Korea is openly talking about autonomy, friendship, partnership, economic partnership. So a lot of things are happening. But this will not stay. This situation will not stay forever. So situation is very flexible. Situation is very fluid. So we should take advantage of this situation. But such a problem is that, but unfortunately, Indian political establishment is not fully able to grasp the strategic importance of Korea for the region and India. So no urgency seen in recent policy initiatives. It's work as usual. Even though power is shifting very fast, we are just work as usual. Yes, okay. Some visitors here and there. No, but they don't show that we have to solve the differences in foreign policy, in our economic policy. We are not showing in trade policy. We are not showing any urgency. We are showing just work as usual. So that work as usual attitude can cause us Korea. If Korea is forced to become part of US-China alliance, then it will be big loss for us. So as I said, highlighted the sentence, situation is very grave. Korea is tilting towards China, is increasing by the day. It is being pushed out by the minute. This is the best I can write. I cannot pinpoint the situation in better ways than this. So I thought over this sentence many times over. I don't know what to write, so I choose like this. Korea's tilt towards China is increasing by the day. India is being pushed out by the minute. It means that balance of power, China's power, military power, economic power, and economic engagement is increasing very fast. South Korea is a very small country. South Korea may not be able to face the pressure. In within 5 to 10 years, South Korea will be in a very, very difficult situation. So we have to support South Korea. We have to get engaged with South Korea. If we leave Korea alone, Korea will definitely turn towards China. And we will lose Korea forever. If we lose Korea forever, it's almost impossible to save the balance of power in the region. On the security structure of the region, the security order in the region. Once the security order in the region collapses, everything collapses. Indian Ocean collapse, peace collapse, nuclear non-proliferation collapse, economic order collapse, everything collapse. You have to understand how it works. So the situation is very, very complex. You have to understand. Number two, as I said, Korea is very low place in India's strategic calculus of India. In the strategic calculus of India, Korea still don't count much. Korea is still a faraway country for most of the strategic community of India. Indian strategic thinkers do not bother much if Korea fell to China, have no idea what will be the consequence for India if there is a power shift in the Korean Peninsula. Indian strategic community has failed to see a linkage between Korean security and Indian security, provide on lip service to Korean unification and denuclearization on Korean Peninsula. India has played no meaningful role and support to Korean core security issues. Korea is left to fend itself alone, went to herself alone against multiple threats and challenges. Strategic partnership is in name only. We have a partnership with Korea, but it's only there's no strategic cooperation. We have not identified the weakness of each other where we try to strengthen each other. It's just a normal, regular strategic partnership, only in name. It's not a functional strategic partnership. It is just a normal partnership. It's a functional strategic partnership. We identify big areas when we try to help each other on a special basis. We prioritize, okay, you're not good here, okay, we will help you. You're not good here, we will help you here. So we identify each other's big points, and then we try to give help on those specific issues, specific capabilities. But not happened. This has not happened so far. So we talk about a strategic partnership only in diplomatic terms, only just as a fashion. If you study clearly Korea, we have not identified any Korea's big points. We have not tried to fill those capabilities. Same with India. In Korea, have not identified where India's are weak, where Korea can help India to develop more and more capabilities. But we still call ourselves strategic partnership. No, it's not partnership, it's just normal partnership. Sometimes strategic partnership just used as a fashion, In diplomatic terms, it is very preferable terms. Every partnership is called strategic partnership. But it's not a partnership. So that is what's happening in Korea. Our partnership is not actually strategic partnership. We have not identified our weak points, and we have not identified our capability where we can help each other. So there's a need to get involved in Korean issues more deeply and actively. Deeper alliance is not possible unless we don't change our current mindset. So we see Korea as just we don't see Korea as an important player. We see Korea just as a regular player. Okay, Korea is rich. Korea is economic power. Korea can help us here and there. So there's no special study which highlights what will happen if Korea fell to China. No study, no systematic work. So no systematic work. Only my book, I wrote a book in Korea. I talked about this issue. But we have to properly understand what will happen if there is power shift in the region. Number third is our economic growth rate is very, very low. As you know, Korea is heavily dependent on China. So Koreans have a high hope with the trade with India. So they thought by developing ties, because India is a market economy, by developing a good relationship with India, they can, to some extent, they can reduce their dependence on China. With China, we have almost $300 billion trade with China. Because that is too much, too risky. China can use that trade to force their policies on Korea. So Koreans feel nervous of that kind of a military engagement, economic engagement with China. So Korean thought in 2010 or something, oh, yes, India is opening and we can have a new partner with India. So they thought India can, to some extent, substitute China. So they had high hopes from India. But unfortunately, our relationship is very, very bad. So Koreans are seriously disappointed. Korea could not, our relationship with trade with Korea could not grow much. Now our ties are very limited, only $20 billion or something, 2022. I don't know exact figure because the new data is not available. But in 2020 is very bad. We had a very minus growth rate. So because of this, we had signed a CIPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with Korea, but it struck. It remained functional for 2-3 years, and then it suddenly became stuck. It needed new changes. But so far, because we have a serious difference with Korea, we have so many meetings, so our diplomats, our officials pretend they are doing their best to solve the problem. But so far, in 10 years, they have failed to narrow down the differences. And the result is that Korea's dependence on China becoming more and more certain. So we have failed to solve the issues as quickly as possible. Koreans are becoming more and more disappointed. Korea is becoming more and more hopeless that India cannot replace China. Korea is not. So if you see, look at the Korea's investor figures. Korea is investing more in Southeast Asia, more in Burma than India. Koreans have lost. Korea has lost that excitement which was there in 2010. Uh, Koreans are not investing in India. Let's face the fact. Korea has lost that Korea. India cannot replace China as a substitute for their economic activities in the region. So that is a serious issue. They have to reignite the hope, Korean hope, that India could play a major role in their economy, that we can reduce their dependence on China to some extent. So they have set up a trade of a big $50 billion trade by 2020, 2030. But if you look at the trade figure now, it's almost impossible that 50 billion trade between India and Korea can be reached. The situation is so bad, our diplomats in Seoul never talk about it anymore. Sometimes South Korean investors talk about it, but our Indian diplomats is completely other story. They have completely given up. No hope, no effort. So complete. They try to pretend as if the target don't exist. They say as if they never mentioned the word $50 billion. They never agreed on 50 billion trade. Situation is very bad. And our trade deficit with Korea is very bad. Our diplomats are trying to narrow, our officials are trying to narrow down the difference, but it's not working because there's not much we can export to Korea. So that is why trade deficit is becoming one of the serious issue between two countries, and that is hurting our strategic partnership. And Korean investment is very slow, very slow. And more important is that Korea has a lot of economic organization in India, which is helping Korean businessmen, Korean business people to have a good business ties with India. But there's no organization, Indian organization in Korea. So around 2010, we have set up this Chamber of Commerce. Suddenly, in a few years' time, Chamber of Commerce was overtaken by big companies. And they were just focusing on to promote their own interest. It was supposed to be a national organization, but no, not anymore. It has become completely dysfunctional. So if you come to Korea, there's nobody which can help you to have a business tie with Korea, to understand Korea, Korean economy, Korean business culture. There's nobody, nothing. Complete given up, complete meltdown. So if you come to Korea, you're on your own. You have to study your own books to learn about Korea. So, but Koreans are providing a lot of good support. Kotra is there, a lot of other bodies are there. So Koreans are helping their businessmen in India like anything. But Indian organization or Korea are very big. We have chamber, but its efforts are no match to Korean bodies. So that is why most of our businessmen are leaving Korea. They have given up everything. When I came to Korea, there used to be India Merchant Association, but now their numbers are decreasing by the day because their situation have changed. It's becoming more and more profitable to buy from Korea and sell in the Middle East. They are leaving Korea. Situation is becoming very difficult. So it's very difficult for the Indian businessman to do business in Korea and make money. People like me who are focused on strategic cooperation are able to get some support from Korea and able to survive. But businessmen are almost impossible to survive if you are focused only on exporting from Korea. So it is very bad. So stronger economic ties with Korea is the foundation for stronger strategic partnership. Stronger strategic partnership cannot exist without stronger economic ties. So you have to understand this difference. For Korean trade is everything. Indian policymaker need to see this linkage. For Koreans, trade is everything. So we have to help Koreans to reduce their economic dependence on China to some extent. To some extent, we have to create a new hope among Koreans that we can, to some extent, help you to reduce their dependence, reduce their linkage with China. So we have to solve SIPA and we have to solve the economic issue, keeping strategic angle in mind. So far, what we are doing is that whenever the negotiation starts, we start tit for tat, rule by rule. Okay, you gave us this, we gave this, you gave us this. No, there's no strategic agreement. It's purely economic calculations. That is why the economic teams which come to Seoul are fully economic teams. They just calculate. Okay, if you do this calculation, if you give this relaxation to you, you give us this relaxation to us. So there is no strategic angle. There is no bigger picture. It's purely economic. It's like two Vipari talking to each other. It's purely profit based. So we have to see Korea as a bigger player We just simply cannot, because as I told you at the beginning, Korea is a unique country. Korea has a multiple purpose, it can play multiple role in our strategic calculations. But so far, our economic teams which come to Korea to negotiate CIPA and other economic deals are poorly keeping economic calculation in mind. So they stone by stone, dollar by dollar, everything poorly profit terms. If we remove this law tax, what you will give us? What you will so investment? So no strategic angle because they say if Korea economic ties or even if you pay some price, but if economic ties improves, everything improves. But our economic teams don't focus on those issues. You have to understand this is one of the core issues. But I have written so many articles to highlight that Korea cannot be seen as a poorly economic partner. Korea is our strategic partner. Korea is very important military player in the region. But our economic teams, when they come to Korea, they just focus on clause by clause. Or you can say brick by brick. If this, give us this. That is why despite 8 years of negotiations happening between CIPA and it's not going nowhere. Because these people don't have any strategic thinking. These economists who come to Korea or go to India have poorly economic. So Korea is a trading country. Korea is a trading country. For them, all these things doesn't matter. We as a superior military power, we have to give a bigger picture. Because we need Korea in Indian Ocean. And we are a bigger economy. So we should try to give some special concession to Korea so that Korea remain aligned with us strategically. Even if they benefit to some extent economically, but they are going to give us back in multiple ways, technologically, militarily, security-wise. So you have to calculate in a comprehensive calculation. So now we are calculating very narrow calculations. If we give some benefit to Korea economically, but Koreans can give something back to us in a comprehensive way, both military as well as non-military, diplomatically. But our economic teams which come to Korea never bother about bigger picture. They just focus on small issues. Okay, and another big problem between India and Korea is the wrong direction of India-Korea defense cooperation. It means when as you know, when I started writing what India-Korea defense cooperation in 2000, I was trying to focus on India-Korea defense policy alignment. The two countries unite together to maintain peace, maintain a way of life. So that time, India-Korea defense industry cooperation was nowhere. But that time, Korean defense industry was nowhere. But suddenly, in a way, Korean defense industry became very stronger. Now Koreans are selling their weapons everywhere. And now, our defense cooperation is hijacked by this defense industry cooperation. The defense alignment has been completely ignored, and defense industry has overtaken. And that has caused a imbalance. It was supposed to keep balance between the policy alignment as well as the defense industry cooperation. But now, defense industry has taken the upper hand, and defense alignment is going down and down. What is the result? The result is that Korea is tilting towards China. Korea is tilting towards because there is no meeting of minds. But our diplomats don't understand this point. That meeting of minds is the key. That meeting of minds, keeping some industrial cooperation is meaningless. We may get some economic good deal if we try to engage Korea on the defense industrial front. We may get some deals. But what's the future of their deals? The deals are possible. But because of some economic benefit which brings, some people are very difficult to convince them. So that is I'm alone. In Korea, I'm alone who trying to talk about that we should focus on more meeting of minds than buying weapons from Korea. So that is why some people don't understand what I'm saying. But you can say I'm the lone warrior who's focusing on defense cooperation, defense alignment, meeting of minds, than buying weapons from Korea. So sometimes because of this attitude, sometimes they don't like me. But this is what I have to do for the country. Because situation is so grave, situation is so difficult. Because if we lose Korea, if Korea become China, what we will do? All this Korean technology, Korean weapons are meaningless, useless. Because we will not be able to continue with the cooperation. These industries are strategic cooperation industries. So they survive for 30, 40 years. But balance of power can shift in 5 years. China can come under Chinese influence within 5 years. What we will do? So first we focus on make sure that China stays stronger. So Korea stays stronger. Korea remain independent. Korea remain sovereign country. Korea remain economic power. Then we start focusing on. But our diplomats, our officials assume that Korea will remain forever sovereign country, independent country. They ignore the power shift which is happening in the region. But I, as a scholar, cannot ignore what is happening. Power shift is happening very, very seriously in the region. And that is one of the core points which I'm facing today, and I'm trying to convince my colleagues in the diplomatic circle that you have to focus on first thing first. Until we don't. So read here. First thing first. First we focus on meeting demands. Then we move to buying weapons from each other. Things must move in proper order. First we have a proper policy alignment, strategy alignment, then a defense industrial alignment, then we buy weapons. But our officials are in a hurry to buy weapons and make some profit. And that's causing a serious problem. That is why China, Korea, Korea is sometimes even Koreans are refusing to share some technology with us. Koreans, even though India has a multi-billion dollar modernization program, but Koreans are not showing any interest. Why? Because Korea's political establishment is tilting towards China. India is launching billions of billion-dollar new defense industry. But Koreans are not showing any interest because Korea's minds have changed, shifted towards China. So we have to understand the technical difficulties, what we are heading into. That is the core one of the core challenges we are facing today. Here is the last point, which I think is one of the biggest challenges. Currently, when I came to Korea around 25 years ago, there used to be only one school in India which used to teach Korean language and Korean studies. It was multiple schools, So it was one school in JNU. I'm from JNU, as you know. So there used to be one center, Korean Study Center. There used to be language as well as some. But now, in the last 25 years, we have 30 Korean language centers, but not a single defense study center. There's no. So our focus is to teach our youngsters Korean language and find a job in Samsung. So we are focused on helping our youngsters get a job in Samsung as an interpreter, as official workers. So we have 30 language school in India, but not a single school which is completely focused on Korea's defense and strategic studies. No, generally we have Korean studies, but they're general nature. So when our diplomats come to, because of this, we have failed to craft our policy, foreign policy and defense policy, because we don't know exactly what Korea wants and how Korea works. We have our officials have very thin knowledge about Korea. We don't know what is Korea mind, what Korea thinking, how Korea thinks, and what Korea needs, what are Korea's weaknesses. Our understanding of Korea's core strategic needs, core strategic strengths is very, very narrow. Very, very narrow. Nobody, honestly speaking, there's not a single Indian in Korea who can honestly say that he knows. There's not a single Indian in Korea. In India also, who can say that he knows what are Korea's core strategic needs and what are Korea's core strategic strengths. We have no strategic experts. So what happened? Now, on the one side, we are trying to start a partnership with Korea, and we don't have a single institute in Korea which can train our officials, we can educate our officials. So when our officials come to Korea, they learn from job. They learn on a job. Their understanding on Korea is very, very limited. Sometimes they even not hear the word Korea. So they learn an airplane. When they sit in the airplane, then they open the guidebook. Korea. Okay, Korean population this. Korean population, they speak Korean language like this. In the airport, sometimes they learn the word from the airport. Can you understand what is happening in Korea? India-Korea ties. Our expertise, our understanding of Korea is very, very limited. All the sources, all the money has gone to Korean language development. Not a single school has been developed which is focused on Korean defense studies, Korean strategic studies. There's not a single expert in India who can honestly say that he knows what is happening in Korean mind. So how can we craft a policy of Korea when we don't even know what is happening in Korea? We have to understand this serious challenge for us. So this lack of deeper understanding of Korean defense and strategic complexity by India, which is the main cause of India's half-baked policies and initiatives. That is why we have not able to craft a functional policy on Korea, on build a partnership, because we don't understand what Korea needs. How can we strengthen Korea? And that's why some of the important calls are being made by this half-educated, half-baked diplomats. They don't understand, but they make calls on Indian security, which ensures Indian security for centuries, for decades to come. How can this happen? So as a result, because there's a lot of failures, a lot of uh, slowdowns. So that currently there's a lot of lack of moral Indian officials. Like I'm fully excited because I read Korea all the time. So I every week I organize some event to build a partnership with India. Why? Because I have a knowledge, I understand. But so every week I organize some event, some seminar, something. But this position, this strength, this confidence come from knowledge, from reading. But our officials are not able to understand. So currently the morale is very low, very low. So whenever we propose something or whenever we propose something, they say no. There was time in 2010 or 2011, we used to organize hundreds of conferences with our officials together. Very big, even if some five-star hotels, sometimes 400 people, 500 people will come, not anymore. So all the communication between our official and our scholars have collapsed. There's a time I used to organize some huge conferences. And that time, you see what has happened. That time I was youngsters. I had less experience about Korea. So that time our communication was bad. But now Indian officials feel so my knowledge about Korea has increased, but their knowledge has increased. So gap. So they are not able to understand what we are trying to tell them. So whenever we propose something, they immediately say no. Immediately say. So there was used time. I used to go to our embassy every week. We used to meet them, have a cup of coffee with them. So there's constant, regular exchange of ideas. Every time, everything we decide, okay, this can be done, this cannot be done. So regular communication was there, regular education was there. I was learning from them, they were learning from us. So all of us, my team, whole Indian Korean team was a big team, Huge activity was going on. But now everything has come down. Now currently the complete communication has broken down between Indian scholars and Indian diplomats. So because of this, how can we craft functional policy for Korea? We are supposed to work together. But because of the lack of knowledge, lack of self-confidence, lack of low morale, everything is falling apart. There's a lack of serious leadership. There's a lack of serious leadership in the diplomatic circles. Until our officials are able to motivate our officers to lead to victory, there will be no victory. So in this situation, we have to have a kind of a special education center for our diplomats. Until we don't spend more money on developing our core resources, especially on defense, on strategic studies, we are going nowhere. So this is a core of the problem is that this lack of confidence is coming from lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge is coming from lack of resources. Lack of resources coming from lack of experts. So first thing first we develop at least 1 or 2 Korean studies study centers in India, where we train our future leaders, where we can train our diplomats. Until we don't do that, there's no future. No future. We have to focus on this problem. Okay, having highlighted all some key challenges which we are facing between India and Korea, now I'm going to talk in brief what are the core areas where we can work together. I will not talk much because I have taken much time now. I will leave some time for your question and answer. So I'm just going to read out. So I have identified core areas, 5 areas. First is space security cooperation, cyber security cooperation, cooperation on Indian Ocean, defense modernization program, and joint human resource development. As you know, China is developing a major space force, and Korea opened up its industry for space modernization. Recently, Korean government was allowed to develop long-range missiles. And Koreans also fear China's space force program. So Koreans and Indians face the same challenge. So space security and space force. So we are proposing that India and Korea should work on space force cooperation, not security cooperation, but space force. So we can develop our space capabilities together. So it's one of the most urgent ideas, most urgent needs where we should work together. Number 2 is cybersecurity. As you know, North Korean these hackers sometimes cooperate with the Pakistani hackers and Chinese hackers, and then they hack our banks, our security establishment. So they work as a team. When our enemies work as a team, we also need to work as a team. But so far, our cooperation level is very low. It's not like that nothing is done. A lot of things are done, but there's not enough. There's not enough to meet the challenge. Our challenge is more serious than our efforts. North Korean Pakistani and Chinese are working in union, working in team. But we are not working in team. We are just formalities. No, our cooperation, security, cyber security cooperation is very less. So we should focus more on cyber security cooperation. Third is in cooperation in Indian Ocean. As you know, Korea and Valve import a lot of energy from Middle East. So there's a lot of scope that peace is made in for cooperation in the Indian Ocean. Koreans need peace so that the ships can pass through the Indian Ocean peacefully. So here also, so far our cooperation is very, very thin. Just some piracy here and there, very thin. Some we do some exercises together. I'm not complaining that nothing is happening, but it's not leaving any impact. We have to have a more powerful cooperation. We have to develop new ideas, new concepts, new vision for the cooperation between Indian Ocean, between between Korean Navy and Indian Navy. So far, we are very low level cooperation there. But the first scope of cooperation is very, very high so far. But I have identified this core area where we should work in the future. Now, as you know, India is launching a very major modernization program, and Korea has also launched a major modernization program. Here, we also can help each other. We can technology transfer, weapon transfer. We can help each other in multiple way, so that our armies, our navies are equipped with the suitable weapon systems, so that we can meet any challenges in the future. And as in last point is very important. It is a strategic point. As you know, Korea is having very low birth rate. Because of that, children are having very, very less growth rate. So, but Korea needs to keep its balance of power, to keep its growth. Korea needs a high-tech human talent. So, India can be a source of high-tech talent from India to Korea. So this is a very important area because Korea's needs are going to increase in the coming decades, and where India can supply very highly talented human sources, which is going to keep Korea growing for a long time to come. If we fail to develop this course, Korea will have to become dependent on low talent, from China, from other countries. But here, Koreans trust Indian talent very much. So that is why we come to Korea. There's a lot of high-tech talent working in Korea from India. So that talent can be extended, but now it's very low level. But if we take it to strategic level, we can supply a lot of good high-tech talent to Korea. This is a bilateral cooperation. I have developed other cooperation. At a multilateral, India Korea can work at multilateral level. So here I have identified 5 areas. India Korea works together to create new regional framework to keep the sea lanes of communication free, open, and functional during the power tussle between China and the USA. Number 2, India Korea works together to mobilize and unite the regional democracy to face the common regional threats under the principle of equality and rule of law. Number 3, join hands with the regional country to create new regional economic cooperation framework based on the rules of free market economy to maintain growth and prosperity during the transition from old order to new order. Join hands to create new rules-based regional security order in post-US-led security era. 5th, India-Korea join hands in peacekeeping, conflict resolution, and law-based global governance. So there are many areas. These are just my 5 areas, proposals where India and Korea can work at multilateral platform that in post-USA regional order, we play an active role because we don't want China to occupy the place being left by USA. So we should create this kind of a multilateral platform where we can operate together so that China is kept in check. So these are just my proposals, but if we work together, we can create new ideas, new possible area of work together. I think I'm done with my slides. Thanks for your attention. Now I will open my floor for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Raghavendra Singh, sir. That was a very high academically intriguing section. We have got enriched a lot on your basic understanding and, of course, advanced thinking on the each and every dimensions and nature of India-South Korea relations. Thank you, sir. And we are also inspired by your energy and enthusiasm because you took that much time for us, and you have taken a great effort also to come up with such a very detailed presentation on each and every phases and aspects of India-South Korea relations. Thanks from the core of each and everyone's heart here. Thank you very much, sir. Now I call upon Dr. Shiv Kumar to moderate the question and answer section. Dr. Shiv, please.
Okay.
Shiv Kumar sir, your voice is not audible.
Okay. Sorry. So, thank you, Dr. Rajesh. Yeah. So, sir, it was actually really a thought-provoking session, actually. And now we would like to invite our colleagues and students, those who want to ask questions, please go ahead. Floor is open for all of us.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Vishal Bhati.
Yes.
And sir, my question is, sir, how do you see cooperation between South Korea and India, especially in Indo-Pacific, to counter China?
Okay.
Do you want me to answer this question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, go ahead.
I think my whole lecture was based on this point. So, we have to have a multi-dimensional approach. We have to think about economic cooperation, military cooperation, and diplomatic cooperation. So, of course, China is the main focus, but we cannot build our policy only on China. China cannot be our main central focus of our strategy. So China is a key player. We have to keep China in mind. But when we develop policies for the region, we focus on the country to developing good friendship with each other. For the global good, for the common good for the mankind. We have to this thing in mind. Because if we focus our policy only on China, we are in a big crisis. So we have to develop a policy for the common good of mankind. So that is very critical point. But if you listen to my lecture, clearly the whole focus was on China.
Okay. So anyone else who want to ask a question or any query? Hello. Is there anyone? Hello. Oh, let me ask the one question. It's coming from the Gitesh Kumar. If I see this message, Gitesh Kumar is actually asking, sir, that what is the role of India, South Korea combinedly in the court? In the court, actually, it's a new discussion nowadays, and so he's asking about what is the role both countries, India and South Korea's role in the quadrilateral dialogue.
Yeah, as you know, both have taken a position. Especially South Korea has taken a position that they will not be part of it. India, to some extent, has joined the Quad, but Korea has completely refused to go along with it. So Korea has followed more autonomous policy than India. In India, there is some support for the current Quad dialogue. So, but in Korea, there's little taker. Not many takers. So that's one of the core difference between USA and South Korea. So even though Korea is a allied country with USA, South Korea has taken a very independent position than China. So then India. India is not a last partner with USA, but India is more aligned with the Quad than Korea. So this is a very unique situation. Korea was supposed to be more aligned with the Quad than India, but the situation is that India is more aligned with the Quad than Korea. Korea is moving away. Korea has never said to USA. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone
Hello,
want to
sir.
ask
Am I
yes.
Hello, sir? Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Okay. Uh, Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. My name is Dr. Kishore. I'm in the Faculty of Political Science here in the LPU. So my question is regarding the idea of Indo-Pacific, because the idea of Indo-Pacific is a newly developed concept, and the countries have a different perceptions, different visions. For example, India's vision of Indo-Pacific, started from the East Asia to the in Africa. So, what is the vision of South Korea? Korea's vision of Indo-Pacific. So, is it compatible with the India's vision of Indo-Pacific? Because we are talking about the strategic partnership between Korea and the India. So if the idea, the vision of the Indo-Pacific is not compatible, then how can you see the future? How can we see the future of a strategic partners between these two countries? So my question
Very good question, and I understand the point very well. And I also can see the clear conflict between South Korea's perception about Indo-Pacific, India's perception about Indo-Pacific. There's some conflict between two ideas. So you have raised a very good question. When we talk about Indo-Pacific region in a platform like this, we talk about Indo-Pacific as defined by USA. So, as a region. Because South Korea and India are playing the role in the Indo-Pacific region as defined by USA. USA has a broader concept. It includes up to Horn of Africa. So our idea of Indo-Pacific was not as it is as the idea of USA. So we have a difference with USA. But South Korea also has a difference. But no matter what we call it and how we see it, but some of the core interest, like let me tell you, South Korea imports 90% of energy through this region, through the Indian Ocean. Now, if there's any trouble in the region, this energy supply can stop. If there's any choke points in the Indian Ocean, something happen, so it's not energy supply can. So Korea has core strategic interest. India also has core strategic interest that China do not dominate this region. As you know, if you see, China has deployed very serious naval resources in the region. Chinese ships, Chinese submarines are everywhere in the region. So India cannot ignore what Chinese are doing. So even though we define the region, we have our own different ideas in mind, but everybody want there should be peace in the Indian Ocean. There should be peace in the choke points areas. There should be peace in the Southeast Asia, South China Sea. So, but some of the core strategic interests, some of the core economic interests are matching. Because of that interest, India and Korea are coming closer. But I agree with you. When we see the bigger picture, they have a very different ideas. South Korea don't want to be in. South Korea don't want to get involved in regional politics, especially far away from their country, especially far away. So they want to leave the region. But they have a serious economic interest, serious security interest. Like for example, China is very active in the South China Sea. Chinese are trying to control their whole region, whole sea, by their own ships. So if China controls South China Sea, if China says every country, every ship who pass through this have to pay the tax or have to take by permission. Think about how much it will cost South Korea. So South Korea has core interest in South China Sea. The South China Sea open free. So Korea cannot afford South China Sea falling to China. So they have some. So my point is this: even though we have different ideas, different concepts, our core interests are same. So that is why we are coming together. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir,
Yes. Vishal?
sir, in the coming time, in the future, we can accept that South Korea will also join Quad.
No, I don't think so. If you ask me, there's no hope.
Sir, because
Because,
South Korea is a ally of United States, and maybe United States force them to join the Quad to counter China.
Yeah, but they have very limited tools because in South Korea has now. That's what I'm saying. Very good question. Earlier, South Korea and USA used to be very close allies. South Korea used to follow USA very closely, but not anymore, because South Korea is closely integrated with the Chinese economy. China is trading 300 billion. Chinese Navy is getting closer to South Korean borders. In that situation, it's very difficult for Korea to join Quad. But if the Korea join Quad, China has many tools, economic tools and diplomatic tools through which it can force China. That is why three no's policy. USA is following, so South Korea is following three no policy. Three policy means that South Korea will not allow nuclear missiles in the region, and they will not join military alliance with Japan and Korea, USA. So it means no. If South Korea cannot join the military alliance with Japan and USA, how can they join Quad? China is forcing USA, forcing South Korea not to even join the military alliance with Japan and USA. So Quad is a multilateral alliance. How will China allow? So in the future, in the coming year, China's military power, China's economic power, and China's push into the region is expected to increase, not decrease. So South Korea in the coming years will be under more pressure than now. So South Korea's chances of joining Quad or even Indo-Pacific or even this AUKUS are almost, if you ask me, 0%. But I cannot guarantee, but something will happen, But if you can calculate what is happening now, chances are very low.
Sir,
Okay, thank you, Vishal. Yeah.
sir, last question, sir.
Okay.
Apart from South Korea, sir, I wanted to know that, sir, United States influence reduced in South Asia? Like vacuum is, how to fill the vacuum of United States in the South Asia region?
You mean South Asia or South Asia means?
Sir, Southeast Asia, South Asia.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So far, once again, very good question. South Korea, this USA, slowly but surely, South Korea is being pushed. So USA is being pushed out of the region. South Korea now, China has invested a lot of money. But China's strategy is very, very complicated. USA has no counter strategy. China is investing a lot of money. China is building a lot of roads and bridges in the region. So, unknowingly, the whole region is becoming part of China. Now, trains are moving. So, super fast trains are moving between countries, like they are one country, like they are one economy. So, population is moving between two countries and regional countries like anything. Never before something like this. Thousands of people migrate, travel between Korea, so travel between China and regional countries. So this kind of a train movement, road movement is unprecedented. So it's very difficult for. So all the space which is being left by USA is occupied by China, not US, India, or Korea. So that is why I'm seriously worried about our future. If the whole region become one market under Chinese leadership, what we will do? Let's think. Whole region, from Burma to Korea, is one economic region. What we will do? Chinese are investing heavily into the region. Do you think we can survive as a sovereign nation, independent nation, if the whole region work as one economic entity? And can this country enjoy any political freedom if they're economically integrated like this? So China is investing heavily into the region. So it will have serious political and economic political and security consequence for the whole region. Yes.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you. Yeah. Dr. Jai, yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, Lakhvinder Singh sir, for this brilliant lecture. I have a question with regard to the lecture. You said in your lecture that South Korea is coming closer to China, right? So it is aware about the growing power of China, and it is very much necessary for South Korea to realize that Chinese power is growing in the region. It is a geopolitical giant in the region. So how does this affect India and South Korea relationship? Because India is not, considering China. India is considering China to be its rival. So how does that affect the Chinese, India's relationship with South Korea?
Very good question. Once again, very good and pointed question. That is the whole point of my lecture. In 2010, our relationship with Korea was very good. Koreans was very optimistic Korea was very hopeful that we can have a good economic partnership with China, with India. So we signed SIPA, and we signed many other agreements, strategic partnership agreement and cybersecurity agreement. So all these things happened between 2010 to 2015. So we signed so many agreements. We used to organize so many conferences, so many things. But once Koreans see that things are not happening as they expected, they started moving out from India. And that hurting India. So our diplomat will not accept it because they are officials. They always spin it. They always show rosy picture. They always say, oh, very good, very good, very good. But if you study objectively, you will see our relationship with India, with Korea is very difficult situation. Our relationship is stopped growing. Our partnership is stopped growing. We are having very difficult situation. So, but only as an academic, I can accept it. If you talk to any diplomat, they're going to spin it. They will say, oh, very good, very good. Everything good, good, good. So that is the problem with this. Diplomats can spin it. But if you study closely, our hopes of economic partnership are going less and less hopeful, less and less hopeless. So our relationship is not good. If you see my post today's post, things are going wrong. Everything which could have gone wrong has gone wrong. So, but problem is that who will say it? Who will say it? Our diplomacy officials will never say it. They will never accept that things are difficult. They will not trade now this year. Trades are difficult. They always spin it. They always spin it. That is the problem with us. So our relationship is in a very difficult situation. So that I'm proposing that we should work on these new areas. I have identified 5 areas: space cooperation, security cooperation, Indian open cooperation, and then human resource development cooperation. Until we don't work on these new areas and give some hope to Koreans will not show some interest in India. So we have to be innovative. We have to be very, very bring out with new ideas to get Korea's attention one more time. Earlier, Korea was interested in Korea, in India, because India was a big market. Now we have to use our new tool that India is the epicenter of technology. Like we have very good epicenter in the space technology. We can play a major role in the cybersecurity. We can play a major role in the Indian Ocean. So if we play our strengths, if we play our big strong points properly, we can still get Korea's attention. We can still Korea to our side. So things are not so hopeless as I said before, that we have still lost hope. But we have to use our cards very, very cleverly, very, very creatively, so that Korea became one more time. Because Korea needs us on so many things, where China will never help them. Chinese will never help them in cybersecurity. Chinese will never help them in Indian Ocean. Chinese will never help them with human resource development. Chinese will never help them on space technology, because only India can help them. But we have to use this our strengths very, very creatively, so that Koreans once again become interested in us. So far, level of excitement, level of morale is very low. If you attend I keep attending the meetings. Koreans are becoming more and more hopeless towards India. So we have to spin our strength. We have to play our cards very, very creatively, very, very strongly, so that Koreans come back to us. Thank you.
Okay, dear faculties, scholars, researchers, students, I know that we have a number of questions, but we are already running out of time. We have certain time restrictions. So now I invite Dr. Javed Ahmed Bhatt to deliver a vote of thanks speech. Javed sir, please, over to you.
Thank you, sir. It was really a wonderful lecture, a kind of a treat to hear on such an important topic of India-South Korea geostrategic partnership. So this was evident that the students do remain intact for all the time. They were patiently listening, and there is unending questions coming up still from the faculty, from the students. So on behalf of the Department of Political Science, Lovely Professional University, we are thankful for accepting the invitation and delivering on such an important topic. I hope we will be more engaging with each other in the coming future. Thank you again. With this, we have reached to the end of today's event. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Javed, for more of time. Now, as the organizing and convener of this lecture, I would like to again thanks personally Dr. Lakhvinder Singh. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much joining us within the very short notice actually. And thank you all the participants, those who joined, because it was examination time here in our university, Public Professional University. And students still, we have got 60 participant, more than 60 participants in our lecture. So it was a really very good session. And now I think once again, I would like to thank all the participants, Dr. Lakhvinder Singh. We will touch in future for further academic engagements, whatever we have further assignments. Now the session is over. I think now we are going to over now. Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.